The spaceport was alive with sound. Ships arrived and left, their engines humming and their lights blinking in rhythm with the crowd. Aliens of all shapes and colors moved through the halls. Some had many arms, some had wings, and others had glowing eyes. They carried packages, talked loudly on strange devices, and hurried toward their destinations. Among all this chaos, a small alien girl named Nira sat alone. Nira was different from most of the aliens in the port. She was small, with pale green skin and soft hair that fell around her face. Her eyes were wide but tired, and her hands were delicate, trembling slightly as she folded them in her lap. She wore a simple tunic that had once been clean but now had small stains from days without proper care. The canteen was warm, filled with smells of cooked food. Plates clattered as waiters moved quickly, carrying meals to tables full of aliens chatting loudly. Steam rose from bowls of soup, and the smell of roasted vegetables made Nira's stomach ache. She had not eaten in a long time. The last meal she had was days ago, and even that was small and dry. Around her, no one seemed to notice. Some aliens walked past her, their eyes avoiding her entirely. Others glanced at her with frowns and shook their heads. There were whispers, short sentences spoken quickly. "She is alone," one said. "She is not our concern," said another. "She should not be here," someone else muttered. Nira heard nothing clearly, but the words weighed on her like stones. She sat in a dark corner, hugging her knees close to her chest. Her plate was empty, a small chip dish she had been given by the canteen master. No food came to her. No one asked if she wanted anything. She tried to make herself invisible, shrinking as much as her small body could. The bustling crowd ignored her completely, and that made her feel even smaller. Nira's stomach growled loudly, and she pressed her hand to it, wishing it would stay quiet. Her throat felt dry. The smell of food made her head spin with longing. She thought about the meals she had eaten in her early childhood, before her family disappeared. She remembered warm bread, soft fruit, and sweet liquids that slid down her throat and filled her with joy. Those days were gone now. She glanced at the other tables. Some aliens had tall stacks of food. Others laughed with friends, sharing bites of meat or fruit, joking and enjoying the warmth of companionship. Nira wanted that. She wanted to sit at a table with someone who cared. But she had learned quickly that no one would invite her. She had learned to hide and to wait, hoping someone might notice her by chance. Nira's eyes fell on a table across the room. A group of large, strong aliens laughed as they passed a plate back and forth. One of them sneered at her briefly, and she looked down quickly. She did not move. She did not even breathe loudly. She simply stayed where she was, a tiny figure in the shadows, hoping that perhaps someone might feel pity and give her a small bite of food. Hours passed slowly. The sunlight from the port's high windows changed from bright white to the soft gold of evening. The crowds thinned slightly, but Nira did not move. She could feel her strength leaving her. Her hands trembled more, and her legs were stiff from sitting so long. She pressed her cheek to her knees, trying not to cry. She did not want to cry. Tears made her feel weaker, and she already felt weak enough. Then she heard it. A soft voice, clear and calm, above the noise of the port. "Are you hungry?" Nira lifted her head quickly. Her wide eyes scanned the room. She saw a human standing near her table. Humans were rare in this port. Most aliens were suspicious of them because of old stories of war and conquest. But this human did not look like the others she had seen. He was small, wearing simple clothes and carrying a bag over his shoulder. His eyes were gentle and full of concern. The human took a step closer. He looked at her plate, empty and forgotten. He did not frown. He did not look away. Instead, he smiled faintly. "Come, eat with me," he said. His voice was quiet but full of warmth. Nira froze. No one had ever spoken to her like that. No one had offered her food. She stared at him, unsure if she should trust this stranger. The human did not rush her. He simply waited, his hands relaxed at his sides. Around them, the other aliens continued with their meals, ignoring the moment entirely. Nira's stomach ached even more. She wanted the food, but she wanted to be safe. She remembered how people had shunned her before, and a small voice inside told her to stay hidden. But hunger was stronger. Slowly, carefully, she moved her small hand toward the plate. Her fingers shook as she reached for the food. The human did not stop her. He did not ask questions. He only waited and watched with kind eyes. Nira touched the plate. It was warm. She looked at the human again. He nodded once, gently. Something inside her began to change. It was not just hunger. It was the feeling of being seen. For the first time in a long time, someone cared about her. The small warmth of hope began to spread through her chest. She took a bite of food. Then another. Her body responded immediately. She felt energy returning to her limbs. Her cheeks warmed, and her eyes sparkled a little in the fading sunlight. The human continued to watch her quietly. He did not ask her name. He did not ask her story. He simply offered her food and allowed her to eat. Nira realized that this moment was rare. Rare enough that she could allow herself to feel safe. She finished the plate, slowly at first, then faster as her hunger disappeared. She felt stronger with every bite. When the plate was empty, Nira looked up at the human. She wanted to speak but could not find the words. The human smiled faintly again. "You are not alone," he said. Nira's eyes filled with tears, but this time they were not tears of sadness. They were tears of relief. Someone cared. Someone had noticed her. Someone had given her a chance. For the first time, she did not feel invisible. She felt seen. She felt that maybe, just maybe, the world could be kind. The spaceport continued to hum with movement. Ships landed and departed, while aliens of all shapes and sizes rushed past one another. Nira no longer sat alone in the dark corner. After the human named Ryan had invited her to eat, she had felt something she had not felt in a long time: safety. Her small hands still trembled, but her stomach was full, and her mind felt lighter. Ryan sat across from her, watching quietly. He did not rush her or ask questions. He simply waited, allowing her to recover in her own way. Nira had learned that most beings only offered words without understanding. They spoke, but they did not listen. They looked, but they did not see. Ryan, however, was different. His eyes held curiosity and patience. He did not judge her. He only observed with care. After a while, Nira felt brave enough to speak. "Why, are you helping me?" she asked softly. Her voice was quiet, almost lost among the clatter of the canteen. Ryan smiled faintly. "Because everyone deserves a meal," he replied. "And no one should be left hungry if it can be avoided." His words were simple, yet they carried meaning. Nira blinked at him, surprised by the plainness of his answer. She had expected a long explanation, a reason that sounded important or official. Instead, he had spoken only truth. Nira nodded slowly. She had heard people say that humans were strange, that they were unpredictable, or even dangerous. Some even said humans could not be trusted. But here, this one human had broken every expectation she had. He had offered her food without asking for anything in return. He had looked at her with care. He had seen her as a person. The canteen was still busy. Aliens continued to pass by, some sneering, some whispering. One small group of aliens looked at them and shook their heads. "Why are you helping her?" one asked quietly. "She is not one of us." But another voice replied softly, "Maybe it is not about who she is. Maybe it is about what is right." Nira could hear the whispers, but they no longer frightened her. She had food, warmth, and someone who cared. That was enough. She looked up at Ryan and noticed how he seemed calm despite the murmurs around them. His eyes were steady, clear, and confident. Somehow, that steadiness made her believe that she could trust him. "Do you live here?" Nira asked, curiosity breaking through her hesitation. Ryan shook his head. "No, I am traveling. I have seen many places, many worlds. But I have also learned that some lessons are the same everywhere. Hunger is one of them. And no one should suffer from it alone." He paused, then added, "I try to help when I can." Nira thought about his words. She had never heard anyone speak so simply yet so strongly. Most people she had met only cared about rules, about wealth, about power. Ryan cared about something different. He cared about life. He cared about the small things that made survival possible. The two of them ate in silence for a few minutes, enjoying the warmth of the meal. Nira's body felt alive again. Her energy returned little by little. She stretched her arms, testing her strength. She felt that perhaps she could walk, talk, and think without the constant ache of hunger weighing her down. After finishing her plate, Nira noticed that the crowd in the canteen had begun to react. Some aliens were staring openly now, their eyes wide with curiosity. Others whispered more loudly, but there was no laughter, no cruelty. For the first time, she felt that their attention did not carry the weight of threat. Ryan noticed the change too. He leaned slightly closer and said, "Do you want to see the port? There are places where you can walk without worry." Nira hesitated. She had wandered the port before, but always in hiding, always careful to avoid attention. But the warmth of the human's presence gave her courage. Slowly, she nodded. They stood together. Nira's small hand brushed against Ryan's arm briefly, a gesture of trust. She had learned that trust was rare, and she chose carefully. Ryan smiled gently, understanding the unspoken promise. He did not grab her hand or pull her forward. He merely walked beside her, giving her space and confidence. The port stretched before them, a vast hall filled with lights, colors, and movement. Some aliens stopped to watch as Nira walked with a human. Their whispers continued, but the tone was different now. There was surprise, curiosity, and even respect in some eyes. It was unusual to see a human take care of an alien girl who had been ignored. As they walked, Ryan pointed out small wonders. "See that ship over there? It runs on water instead of fuel. And that market has fruits from 5 different planets. Some taste sweet, some taste sour, but they are all alive in their own way." Nero listened with wide eyes, fascinated by the things she had never noticed before. For the first time in a long while, she felt hope. She realized that the world was not only a place of danger and cruelty. There were beings like Ryan who could see beyond fear, beyond difference, and beyond survival. There were beings who could offer help without asking for reward. By the end of the walk, Nero felt lighter than she had in years. She had food, warmth, and companionship. She had someone who saw her as important, not invisible. And in her heart, she knew that this human had changed something inside her. He had given her more than a meal. He had given her the beginning of trust, the first step toward a new life. As they returned to the canteen, Nero realized that she no longer feared the whispers. The attention of the crowd did not matter. She had learned that kindness was stronger than judgment, and courage could come from the smallest gestures. And in Ryan's eyes, she saw a promise that she would no longer be left behind, no longer be alone, and no longer go hungry if someone could help. That evening, the spaceport seemed brighter. The lights reflected off the polished floors, and the sound of ships landing felt less harsh. Nero sat beside Ryan again, her plate now full of fresh food. She looked at him and whispered, "Thank you." Ryan smiled. "No need to thank me," he said. "Everyone deserves a chance. Today, it is your turn to have one." Nero realized that this human had done something remarkable. He had not fought a battle or commanded respect. He had simply offered kindness. And sometimes, she thought, that was the greatest power of all. For the first time in her life, Nero felt safe, seen, and alive. And she knew that this was only the beginning of something new. The next morning, the spaceport was alive with the usual energy. Traders called out their goods, merchants arranged colorful stalls, and ships lifted off with bright trails across the sky. Nero woke early, still feeling the warmth of the previous day's meal. For the first time in a long while, she felt safe. She stretched her arms and looked around, her eyes wide with curiosity. Ryan was already up, organizing a small bag of supplies. He had told her they would explore more of the port and visit a nearby market where she could choose fresh fruits and vegetables. Nero felt a mix of excitement and nervousness. She had never been allowed to move freely before. Others had always pushed her away or ignored her. But with Ryan by her side, she felt that perhaps she could face the world. "Are you ready?" Ryan asked, his eyes calm and patient. Nero nodded. "Yes," she replied softly, her voice steady. She held her head a little higher than the day before, feeling stronger with each moment. They walked together through the crowded port. Nero noticed the small wonders she had never seen before: floating carts that moved without wheels, colorful lights reflecting off the polished floor, and tiny creatures that scurried among the stalls selling strange fruits. Ryan pointed out the details with quiet excitement, teaching her to observe carefully. But not everyone was pleased. Some aliens watched them from the shadows. A few whispered among themselves. "Why does he care for her?" one muttered. "She is nothing," said another. Their eyes were sharp and suspicious. Nero felt a familiar knot of fear, but she held Ryan's sleeve lightly. His presence calmed her, giving her courage to continue. As they approached the market, a sudden commotion caught their attention. A group of rough-looking aliens was arguing loudly with a merchant. Plates clattered, and voices rose. Nero felt her chest tighten. She had always avoided trouble, but now she realized that danger could appear without warning. Ryan noticed her hesitation and bent slightly to speak softly. "Stay close," he said. "We will be safe as long as we move carefully." Nero nodded again, gripping his arm lightly. Together, they moved toward the center of the market. The noise grew louder, and soon it became clear that the argument was about stolen goods. The merchant accused the aliens of taking fruit without paying. The group of aliens became aggressive, raising their voices and threatening the merchant. Most of the crowd stepped back, unsure of what to do. Some simply watched, while others whispered that humans should stay out of alien matters. Nero felt a flicker of fear. She had never seen violence, but she understood that this was dangerous. Her heart pounded in her chest. Ryan stepped forward calmly. "Please stop," he said. His voice was firm, but not loud. The rough aliens turned toward him, surprised that a human would intervene. "No one should fight over food here," Ryan continued. "We can solve this without anger." One of the larger aliens laughed. "Who are you to tell us what to do? You are just a human," he said, sneering. Ryan looked directly at him. "I am someone who knows that no one should be hurt for hunger," he replied. His eyes were steady, and his posture was confident. There was no threat in his voice, only truth. The crowd grew quiet. They watched, waiting to see what would happen next. Nero felt a new feeling rising inside her. It was admiration, but also hope. She saw that Ryan's words carried power, not because of strength or weapons, but because of courage and care. He spoke for what was right, and that alone made others listen. The rough aliens hesitated. They muttered among themselves, unsure how to respond. Ryan used the moment to offer a solution. "We can share the food fairly," he said. "Everyone can take some, and no one goes hungry." Slowly, the group agreed. The merchant handed out the fruit, and the crowd began to disperse. Nero watched in awe. She had never seen a human handle a situation like this, not with force, but with fairness. She felt a spark of confidence inside herself. Perhaps she, too, could learn to face challenges in this way. After the incident, Ryan knelt slightly and offered Nero a piece of fruit. "Here," he said gently. "You deserve this." Nero smiled, taking it carefully. She felt stronger with every small step she took. The fear that had followed her all her life seemed to fade slightly. With Ryan guiding her, she began to believe that she could survive and even thrive in a world that had always been cruel. As they continued through the market, Nero began to notice more details. She saw small children carrying goods for their families, workers who moved with careful precision, and travelers from distant worlds with strange clothes and tools. Ryan pointed out interesting things, teaching her the names of fruits, the ways different aliens spoke, and the ways some creatures moved. By the end of the morning, Neera's confidence had grown. She had faced her first challenge outside the canteen, and she had survived without fear controlling her. She realized that Ryan was more than a human who shared food. He was a guide, a teacher, and a friend. His presence made her feel alive and capable. When they returned to the canteen later, Neera paused to look at the empty corner where she had sat the day before. The memory of hunger, loneliness, and fear made her shiver slightly, but she smiled. She had come a long way in a short time. With Ryan by her side, she felt that even greater challenges could be faced. That evening, as the port began to quiet down, Neera and Ryan shared another simple meal. They spoke about the events of the day, laughing softly at small mistakes and marveling at the new experiences they had seen. Neera realized that the world was bigger than she had imagined, full of both danger and kindness. And for the first time, she believed that she could find her place in it. The day ended with a quiet moment. Nero looked at Ryan and said softly, "Thank you for showing me this." Ryan smiled. It is only the beginning, he replied. There is much more to see, and much more to learn. And you are ready for it? Nira felt hope bloom in her chest. She had survived hunger, fear, and loneliness. She had learned that courage could come from kindness, and strength could come from trust. And now, with Ryan guiding her, she felt ready to face whatever the universe had in store. The morning sun filtered through the tall windows of the spaceport, casting long shadows on the polished floors. Nira walked beside Ryan, her steps lighter than they had been before. She no longer carried the heavy weight of hunger or fear. The first days with Ryan had shown her that kindness existed in the universe, even when others ignored or shunned her. Ryan carried a small satchel filled with tools, cloths, and simple supplies. Today, he said with a calm smile, we will explore beyond the market. There is a place nearby where the young ones of the city play, and you can meet others safely. Nero looked at him with wide eyes. Meeting others made her nervous. In the past, she had been ignored, laughed at, or pushed away. But Ryan's steady presence gave her courage. She nodded, taking a small breath before following him. They walked along a narrow corridor that led to an open plaza. The plaza was filled with young aliens playing games, chasing small floating orbs, and laughing with each other. Some had bright colors, some had long tails, and some had wings fluttering gently. Nira stopped for a moment, unsure if she should enter. Ryan noticed her hesitation. He knelt slightly to meet her eyes. You can take it slow, he said softly. You do not have to rush. You only need to stay close to me if it feels safer. Nira felt warmth in her chest. She realized that he was giving her a choice, respecting her feelings. Slowly, she took a step forward, then another. Her small feet moved carefully across the plaza until she reached the edge where the other young ones were playing. The other children paused to look at her. Some stared curiously, some whispered among themselves. Nira felt the familiar tightness of fear, but she remembered Ryan's words. He had shown her that courage was not about ignoring fear. Courage was about moving forward even when fear was present. One of the smaller aliens, a round creature with blue skin and short antennas, stepped forward. Are you new here? It asked, tilting its head. Nira nodded quietly. Yes, she replied. Her voice was soft, but steady. The little alien smiled. I am Lumo. Come, play with us. Nira hesitated, then glanced at Ryan. He gave a small nod, smiling encouragingly. Taking a deep breath, Nira stepped forward to join Lumo and the others. For the first time, she ran and laughed without fear. Her small body moved with energy, and her eyes shone with delight. Ryan watched from a short distance. He did not interfere, but he stayed close enough to ensure she was safe. The bond between them was quiet but strong. Nira had learned to trust him, and he had learned to understand her pace and feelings. Together, they created a small circle of safety amidst a world that often ignored or harmed the weak. After the games ended, Nira and Ryan walked to a nearby workshop that Ryan had noticed the day before. The workshop belonged to an old alien mechanic who repaired small ships and machines. The walls were filled with tools, parts, and gadgets of all shapes and sizes. Ryan knelt down beside a work table and pulled out some simple tools from his bag. Today, Ryan said, I will teach you something important. Machines and tools are not just for work. They teach patience, observation, and careful thinking. You will see how much you can learn if you try. Nero leaned closer, her eyes wide with curiosity. She had never used tools before, but something about Ryan's calm manner made her want to learn. Carefully, she picked up a small screwdriver and followed his instructions. Ryan showed her how to unscrew a panel, examine the gears inside, and put it back together. At first, her hands trembled, and the small parts slipped. She felt frustration rising, but Ryan's voice was steady. "It is okay," he said softly. "Mistakes are part of learning. Try again, slowly." Nira took a deep breath and tried again. This time, she moved more carefully. She observed each part, listened to the small sounds the machine made, and adjusted the pieces with patience. Slowly, she succeeded. The panel fit perfectly, and the machine hummed softly as it worked again. Her eyes lit up with pride. "I did it," she whispered. Ryan smiled broadly. "Yes, you did. You are clever and careful. You learn quickly when you pay attention." The hours passed as Nira continued to work on simple machines under Ryan's guidance. She began to understand that learning new skills was not just about tools or machines. It was about confidence, patience, and trust. Ryan trusted her to try, and she trusted him to guide her without pressure or judgment. By the end of the day, Nira was tired but happy. She had played with others, learned new skills, and strengthened the bond with Ryan. She realized that her life was beginning to change. The fear, loneliness, and hunger that had once defined her days were slowly being replaced by confidence, trust, and hope. As they walked back to the Spaceport's central area, Nira felt a new sense of belonging. She looked up at Ryan and said softly, "I never thought someone would care like this." Ryan shook his head. "It is not about thinking. It is about acting. We can show kindness even when others do not. That is how the world changes, little by little." Nira nodded, feeling the truth in his words. She understood that the bond she had with Ryan was more than friendship. It was a foundation for courage, a space where she could grow stronger, and a safe place in a world that often overlooked the small and weak. That evening, as the port quieted and the lights dimmed, Nira sat beside Ryan with a plate of food. She felt full, not just in body, but in heart. She had learned that trust could be built, that strength could grow from kindness, and that even in a world filled with indifference, one person's care could make all the difference. For the first time, Nira believed that she could face the future without fear. With Ryan by her side, she knew she would continue to grow, learn, and find her place in the universe. And she understood something important: she did not have to be invisible anymore. She was seen, she was valued, and she had someone who believed in her. The day was unusually warm for the spaceport. Sunlight poured through the high glass ceilings, casting golden reflections on the polished floors. Nira woke early, her mind still buzzing with curiosity and excitement. She had spent the last few days learning, playing, and exploring with Ryan. Her confidence was growing, but she knew that the universe could be unpredictable. Ryan was already awake, preparing a small bag for their morning walk today. He said calmly, "We will explore the docks where the small ships are kept. There are machines to study, and you can learn more about how they work." Nira nodded, feeling both eager and nervous. She had never been near the docks before. Ships of different shapes and sizes rested there, their engines humming softly, ready for departure. Nira followed Ryan carefully, her small feet making light taps on the metallic floor. As they approached the first row of ships, Nira noticed a strange, half-built machine in the corner. It was large, with pipes and wires sticking out at odd angles. Its metal frame gleamed under the sun, but it looked dangerous and unstable. "What is that?" Nira asked, her voice full of curiosity. Ryan studied the machine for a moment. "It's an old cargo transport," he said. "It has not been used in years, and it is missing some parts. If handled carefully, it can be repaired. But it could also be dangerous if it starts moving suddenly." Nira's eyes widened. She had never worked on something so large before. Her small hands felt unsure, but Ryan placed his hand gently on hers. "We will do it together," he said. "You only need to pay attention and follow my guidance. I trust you to be careful." For hours, they examined the machine. Ryan explained the parts, showing Nira how each section worked. He asked her questions, encouraging her to think and observe. Nira learned to check wires, tighten screws, and identify small leaks. With each task, her confidence grew. Suddenly, a loud hissing sound echoed across the dock. One of the pipes on the machine had shifted, releasing a burst of steam. Nira jumped back, fear rising in her chest. The machine groaned as metal moved under pressure, and a small alarm beeped loudly. Ryan reacted immediately. He grabbed Nira's hand and pulled her to a safe distance. "It's okay," he said calmly. "Stay here and watch. I will handle it." Nira watched as Ryan worked quickly but carefully. He adjusted the pipe, tightened loose bolts, and silenced the alarm. The machine settled, and the hissing stopped. Nira's heart still raced, but she felt a new sense of awe. The human had remained calm under pressure. He had protected her and solved the problem without panic. "You see," Ryan said, turning to her. "Even when danger appears, careful observation and calm thinking can help. Fear is natural, but it does not have to control you." Nira nodded, feeling a spark of courage. She realized that she had learned something more important than fixing machines. She had learned that she could remain calm, trust her abilities, and rely on those who cared for her. The day continued with more lessons. Ryan taught Nira how to read the gauges on the ships, how to follow simple schematics, and how to anticipate small problems before they became big ones. Nira's hands became steadier, her eyes sharper, and her mind more confident. She was no longer the weak, invisible girl from the corner of the canteen. As the afternoon approached, a sudden announcement echoed through the docks. "Warning! Unauthorized access detected near docking bay 3. All personnel evacuate immediately." Nira froze. She had never encountered such an alert before. Her stomach tightened with fear. Ryan placed a reassuring hand on her shoulder. "Stay close," he said. "We will move safely, and I will protect you." They walked toward the edge of the docks carefully. Smoke and sparks began to rise from a small ship at docking bay 3. A mechanical failure had caused a short circuit, and the ship's engines were unstable. Nira watched in horror as flames began to flicker from a panel. Ryan assessed the situation quickly. "We can stop this," he said. "I need you to help me pass these tools." Nira hesitated for a moment but then remembered his teachings. She focused, grabbed the tools, and handed them to Ryan efficiently. Together, they worked to disconnect the power source and secure the ship. Sparks flew, and smoke filled the air, but neither panicked. Finally, with one last adjustment, the ship went silent. The flames died, and the smoke cleared. Nira stepped back, her chest heaving. She had faced real danger, and she had helped overcome it. Ryan smiled at her. "You did well," he said. "You kept calm, followed instructions, and acted with care. That is how courage grows. Not by ignoring fear, but by facing it carefully and with thought. Nira felt a warmth in her chest. She realized that she was stronger than she had ever known. The fear that had once paralyzed her had transformed into energy. She had learned to trust herself, to trust Ryan, and to act even when danger appeared. As they walked back to the central port, Nero looked around. The docks seemed different now. They were no longer a place of fear and uncertainty. They were a place where she had grown stronger, learned new skills, and discovered courage. That evening, as the sun set and the stars began to shine through the glass ceiling, Nira and Ryan sat quietly on a bench. She looked at him with admiration. "Thank you," she whispered. Ryan shook his head gently. "It is not just me," he said. "It is also you. You faced the challenge, stayed calm, and acted with care. That is your courage." Nira smiled, feeling a deep sense of pride. She had faced her first real danger and emerged stronger. She had learned that life could be unpredictable, but with trust, patience, and careful action, she could handle it. For the first time, she felt fully alive. She understood that courage and strength were not measured by size, power, or speed. They were measured by the ability to stay calm, help others, and face challenges with thought and care. The spaceport had begun to settle into the quiet rhythm of evening. Traders were closing their stalls, and the last few ships prepared to leave. Nero walked beside Ryan, her steps confident and steady. The events at the docks earlier had changed her. She felt stronger, braver, and more aware of what she could do when danger appeared. Word of the incident had already spread. Aliens who had ignored her before now whispered among themselves. "Did you see the girl with the human?" one said. "She helped stop the malfunction," another replied. For the first time, Nero felt eyes watching her with curiosity and even respect, rather than fear or contempt. Ryan noticed the change in the crowd. "People are beginning to see you differently," he said softly. "It is not magic or luck. It is what you did and how you acted. You showed courage and care." Nira glanced at him, her eyes wide. "But I was just helping," she said quietly. "I did not mean to make anyone notice." Ryan smiled. "Sometimes the smallest actions speak the loudest. You faced danger, stayed calm, and worked to help. That shows strength, and people cannot ignore strength when it appears." As they walked further, the canteen master approached. He was a tall, serious alien with gray skin and long, careful movements. He stopped in front of them, folding his arms. "I have heard of what happened at the docks," he said, his voice measured. "You, human, have shown skill and wisdom beyond what I expected. And the girl, she surprised us all." Nira blinked, unsure of what to say. She had never been praised before. Usually, she was scolded or ignored. The weight of attention made her nervous. The canteen master continued, "Many of us have ignored her. We have allowed her to remain unseen and hungry. But now it is clear that she is capable and deserving of respect. It is our choice whether we continue to cast her aside or welcome her as one of us." Ryan placed a gentle hand on Nira's shoulder. "The choice is not just theirs," he said. "You can decide how you wish to be treated too." Nira thought about it. For so long, she had hidden, feared rejection, and accepted loneliness. But the events of the past days had shown her that she could be brave, that she could act, and that she could earn trust. Slowly, she lifted her chin and said, "I want to be treated as someone who can belong. I want to be seen." The canteen master nodded. "Then it shall be so," he said. He turned to the crowd of onlookers, who had gathered quietly to watch. Let this be known, he said, his voice carrying across the hall. This girl has shown courage, skill, and care. She deserves a place among us. We will welcome her. Whispers spread through the crowd, this time with different tones. Some aliens stepped forward, offering small gestures of respect, sharing food, offering seats, or simply bowing slightly in acknowledgement. Others watched, still unsure, but there was no mockery, no cruelty. For the first time, Nira felt that she belonged. Ryan smiled at her. See, he said softly. You earn their trust not by asking, but by showing what you are capable of. You acted with courage, and that spoke louder than words. Nira felt a warmth in her chest. She realized that belonging was not something that others gave lightly. It was earned through patience, courage, and care. And she had done it. She had faced danger, learned new skills, and acted with thought and kindness. As the evening continued, Nira and Ryan returned to a quiet corner of the port. Nira watched the stars beginning to appear through the tall windows. She thought of the journey she had started just a few days ago, hungry, alone, and unseen. Now she was fed, respected, and capable. Ryan handed her a small plate of fresh fruit. Eat, he said gently. You have earned it. And remember, this is only the beginning. You will continue to grow, learn, and show courage. Others may follow your example. Nira smiled, taking the fruit. She realized that Ryan's guidance had done more than fill her stomach. He had taught her to face the world with confidence, to trust herself, and to act with care even when fear appeared. The canteen master approached once more. I will assign a small space for you, he said to Nira. A place where you can rest, learn, and prepare for your future. You will not be invisible here again. Nira's heart swelled. For the first time, she had a home, a place where she could belong and be safe. The respect of others was not something she had imagined possible. She looked at Ryan, and he nodded encouragingly, his calm eyes full of pride. Over the next hours, small groups of aliens approached Nira. Some offered advice, teaching tips, and friendship. Others brought small gifts, a piece of fruit, a tool, or a story. She listened carefully, learning how to interact with them, while still feeling the steady support of Ryan beside her. By the time the sun had fully set, Nira felt a deep sense of achievement. She had faced hunger, fear, and isolation, and had emerged stronger. The actions of a single human had given her the courage to step forward, and her own choices had earned her recognition and respect. Ryan placed a hand gently on her shoulder. You see, he said softly, one small act of care can grow into something greater. You faced every challenge with patience and thought. That is why they see you now. That is why you belong. Nero looked around at the spaceport, the ships, the aliens, and the soft glow of the evening lights. She felt hope. She felt belonging. And she knew that the future, no matter what it held, would be faced with courage, care, and trust. For the first time, Nira understood that life could be fair, and kindness could grow. She had a place, a home, and a human who had taught her that courage and compassion were more powerful than fear and neglect. The morning sunlight streamed into the spaceport, illuminating the wide halls and reflecting off the polished floors. Nira walked beside Ryan with a light step, her eyes bright and full of energy. She no longer felt the hunger or fear that had once defined her life. She had learned courage, trust, and care, and she now understood that she had a place in the world. The canteen was busy as usual, filled with aliens of all shapes and sizes. Plates clattered and voices rose in laughter and conversation. But today, Nira did not shrink into a corner. She walked confidently toward the center, where a long table had been set for her. Other aliens were seated nearby, offering nods of respect and small smiles. Ryan followed her, carrying a small bag of supplies and a warm smile. "Today," he said gently, "you will have your place at the table. This is where you belong." Nira paused for a moment, taking in the sight. The table was not only a place to eat. It was a symbol. A symbol that she was seen, valued, and respected. She remembered the days when she had sat alone, invisible, hungry, and frightened. Now everything had changed. Carefully, she took her seat. The other aliens shifted slightly to give her space, their expressions a mix of curiosity and admiration. Some whispered quietly to each other, noticing how much she had grown. Others offered small gestures of friendship, placing plates of food within her reach or speaking gentle words of encouragement. Ryan sat beside her, his calm presence steadying her. "You earned this," he said softly. "Not because of who you are, but because of how you acted. You faced fear, learned new skills, and showed courage. That is why you belong." Nero looked at him, her eyes wide with gratitude. She remembered the first day he had offered her a meal. She remembered the quiet encouragement, the lessons at the docks, and the guidance in the workshop. Everything had led to this moment. She felt a warmth in her heart, a sense of belonging she had never known before. As they ate together, Nero began to speak with the other young aliens. She told them about the lessons she had learned from Ryan: how to observe machines, how to act calmly in danger, and how to help others without fear. They listened closely, asking questions and trying small tasks themselves. Nira realized that she had become a guide, just as Ryan had been for her. The crowd in the canteen grew quieter as more aliens watched. Some older beings nodded in approval, recognizing the transformation in the girl who had once been invisible. Others began to offer small acts of kindness, sharing food and offering seats to younger aliens who might otherwise be ignored. The ripple effect of one act of care was growing stronger. Ryan noticed the change and smiled. "Do you see?" he said. "Kindness spreads. Courage spreads. What you do inspires others, even without words." Nero felt a sense of pride. She understood that belonging was not something that could be demanded or taken. It was earned through patience, care, and action. She had earned her place, not only at the table but in the hearts of those around her. The afternoon passed with quiet joy. Nira continued to talk, learn, and teach. She helped small groups of aliens with simple tasks, showing them how to use tools safely or solve small problems with machines. Each successful moment strengthened her confidence, and each smile from others made her heart swell. As evening approached, the port began to quiet down. Ships lifted off into the sky, their lights glimmering against the deepening darkness. Nira and Ryan walked to a quiet balcony overlooking the spaceport. The stars were beginning to shine, and the distant hum of engines filled the air. Ryan looked at her and spoke softly. "You have grown so much, Nira. From the first day I saw you in the corner to now, you have shown courage, kindness, and intelligence. You are ready for anything." Nira smiled, feeling a deep sense of gratitude. "I could not have done it without you," she said. "You taught me how to trust, how to act, and how to believe in myself." Ryan shook his head gently. "I only gave you a chance. You took it. That is what matters. You chose courage and care. That is why you are here now." Nero looked at the spaceport below, thinking of all the beings she had met, the lessons she had learned, and the fears she had faced. She realized that life was not only about survival. It was about connection, action, and the courage to face the unknown. As they returned to the canteen for the evening meal, Nira felt a quiet joy. She sat at the center table, surrounded by friends, allies, and curious onlookers. She no longer felt invisible. She no longer felt fear controlling her steps. She belonged. The canteen master approached, placing a plate of warm food in front of her. "You have done well," he said. "You are an example to all of us. Courage, patience, and care are stronger than neglect and fear. You have earned your place." Nira's eyes glistened with happiness. She nodded and smiled, feeling the full weight of the words. She had come from hunger, fear, and loneliness. She had learned to trust, act, and care. She had grown stronger, and now she was recognized and respected. Ryan sat beside her, offering a small piece of fruit. "Eat," he said. "And remember, this is not the end. It is only the beginning of a new journey. You have shown that one act of kindness can change lives. You have shown that courage grows in those who believe in themselves." Nira ate, feeling the warmth of the food and the joy of belonging. She looked around the table, seeing faces of aliens who once ignored her, now offering smiles and small gestures of respect. She realized that life had changed forever. For the first time, she understood the true meaning of home. It was not just a place to eat or rest. It was a place where she was valued, respected, and cared for. A place where she could grow, learn, and help others in return. As the stars brightened in the night sky, Nero leaned slightly toward Ryan and whispered, "Thank you for seeing me." Ryan smiled warmly. "I only offered a chance. You took it, and now the world sees you too." Nero looked around once more, feeling a deep sense of peace. The universe was still vast and full of challenges, but she was ready. She had courage, care, and a place at the table. She had a home, a friend, and a future she could face with confidence.